Zuvuya is a force that propels synchronicity and consequently the supply from which magic bursts forth. It is a reflex of cosmic memory, the circuit through which everything comes back to itself. Through synchronicity, symbols, and metaphors, we are rearranging and forming our inner landscape to be able to grow in the fullness of being our own selves. Welcome to our podcast. In this sacred space, we share valuable knowledge, experiences, and art for the benefit of all. Coming up,
they co-resonate with the alchemy that is at all times taking place within our own being through our physicality.
wow.
And then it concludes actually with actually the establishing within our physicality and within our matter of our own elemental composite being, the establishing of this transformation, of the transformation of all our subtle bodies, of our subtle matter. Matter is not only our physical being, but is also, our emotions and our thinking, as far as the subtle fields go. So this transformation is being established in order to realize our potential and be the best that we can be, and to actually realize what we are here to do and how are we about to do it in a very unique and individual way that only we can do. So this is actually also resonating not only on a personal level, but also in a collective and in an ancestral level through our physicality, because it's a physical substance, this oil and this equilibrium bottle, that creates actually by resonance. So it does not do anything on its own. We are the
interacting,
the project that is that is bubbling at the moment and transforming. So this is just resonating with this transformation that is happening at its own pace.
Hello, synchronauts, and welcome to another episode of the Zuvuya Sessions. My name is Aida, and I am very happy to have you here with me today. This month's episode, oh my God, what an interesting person I have as a guest. It is my friend and co-synchronaut. He's also a synchronaut, just as I am. His name is Mahaamara, and we connected through a synchronotron study group, and I was really, really amazed to find out so much about this amazing man who, he really, really surprised me when he shared with me his artistic background. I had no idea that he had such an amazing experience. And we're going to be talking about many things. We're going to be talking about, obviously, his artistic endeavors, and we're going to be talking about his connection a little bit with the law of time and with Kabbalah, and also with Aura-Soma, because he's an Aura-Soma practitioner, and many other things that have to do with understanding why we are alive, or why we are incarnated, what this is all about. It's really, really interesting, the conversation we had, beginning with talking about his own personal experience and then moving on to greater topics, such as wondering why are we here, and talking about the trauma and how we are looking forward to healing. Many people who are right now incarnated, and they have a certain affinity to these kinds of esoteric teachings. We're all looking for healing and well-being. So let me introduce to you who is Mahaamara. He is an artist, a teacher, and a healer. His interaction with Aura-Soma begins in 1997, holding since a pivotal center core position in his life. His MA academic training is that of a painter, as well as pedagogics of arts and history of arts teaching. He enjoyed a career from 1993 to 2015 as a set designer, mainly on stage and events, reaching a pinnacle in 2004 as associate production designer of the Olympic Games opening and closing ceremonies in Athens. His responsibility therein was the formative realization of ideas. As a painter and set designer, he collaborated extensively with national institutions of culture as well as eminent private theatrical production organizations. His work as a set designer brought him to China and Azerbaijan on their respective Olympic opening ceremonies. As I mentioned earlier, he's an Aura-Soma practitioner as well as an Osho Neo Reiki master. He enjoys meditation regularly, structurally based on anthroposophic and theosophical studies. He has a special interest in Kabbalah as well as esoteric teachings from a very early age. Kabbalah constitutes the spinal cord of Aura-Soma since Vicky Wall's father came from the Hasidic tradition of Jewish mysticism. To him, Kabbalah and Aura-Soma represent a dynamic living potential over the constant transformations of form through the medium of consciousness. Through its practice, incentive is given for us to remember who we really are and what we are here to do, thus reconstituting the fabric of time. So, synchronauts, without further ado, I give you the warmest of welcomes to this Zuvuya Sessions episode. Let's see what this conversation is going to bring to the table. Welcome. So, hello, Synchronauts, and welcome to our episode 7. And I am very happy today because, as a guest, I have invited a dear friend and fellow Synchronaut, an artist and a teacher. Welcome, dear Mahaamara. It's great to have you here with us today. How are you doing this day? Like, you're in Greece, so for me, it's my morning, and for you, it's the afternoon while we are recording. How are you doing?
I'm fine. I'm very happy to be with you. I'm very happy that you've invited me for this podcast from the faraway lands of the Americas. And
Yeah, for you, it's very far away. Yes, when in different points of the planet, no? But thanks to the magic of the internet, we get to connect and to have this conversation. So thank you so much for doing this. And for this interview and this episode, I want to talk about, because I was like, the reason why we're doing this podcast is because you're coming up with some new teachings that you want to share with the world, and I think it's very interesting. But I really didn't know much about your background and your um, like your academic background and what you used to do for work. And I was flabbergasted. I was like, oh, I'm gagged. Oh my God, it's so interesting the path that you've followed and everything that you've done. So I would like to begin this interview by talking a little bit about your background as an artist, because I feel it's important to explain your personal evolution towards what you are developing right now. Because you have a background as a painter as well as pedagogics of arts and history of arts teaching, and this is what blew my mind, like almost like, oh my God, this is so cool. You were a set designer who worked as an associate production designer of the opening and closing ceremonies of the Olympic Games of Athens in 2004. That was when I read it, I was like, wow, this is so cool, because I think we all remember particularly those Olympic Games, because it's like they came back home and it was a big, big celebration. And it was really an amazing ceremony, both the opening and the closing. So I want to ask you, why did you choose to study a career related to the arts and to painting? Why didn't you study anything? Because you have many interests and you're very intelligent too. I thought you were an engineer, but why did you choose to study this?
well, I think that if you ask any artist who, in any point of its life, chose to study this, they will all have the same answer, that I didn't have any other choice. So there is no, I mean, if you do something like that, there is practically no choice, because it's not exactly like being famous or going on the screen, or, it's every child's dream, be an astronaut or a pilot, I'm
Or a
speaking of another
firefighter.
generation, of course.
Yeah.
Maybe today's millennials and onward have other dreams, which I wish. But back in the day, painting is a different thing because it's a very solitary thing. It's actually a conversation with ourselves, because it's like, for me, it's like mirroring yourself. So in one way, you have a very burning desire to face yourself, to define who you are through the medium of the visual arts. So one thing is that, and another thing that many painters will also tell you is that the pressure was so high when I chose to do that, to study that, to devote myself in that, I mean, from my surroundings, that this was the most physical and most immediate way to get in contact with my being, and with having this conversation about who I am with myself. So
Wow.
I suppose this is it. And also another third leg of this question, which reaches out to most people, is that there is also the desire to connect with other people. So the medium of creation, when you do something and you show it to somebody else, then this to show you something that I have done already establishes one very particular form of communication between the world and ourselves. So there is also this very important part.
Yes, I think that whenever you are in a creative path, it doesn't matter what kind it is, be that you are writing or communicating or painting or anything that involves creation or creating something, that's it. No, you want to convey a message, share, and also have this interaction with other people. And it's amazing how art, even though it's not necessary, quote unquote, I would say, it is very necessary for the human psyche. It's very, very important. And so I'm really, well, it makes sense what you're telling me about all the pressure, maybe when you say I want to study this, because like most of the people that I've known, not everybody, but most of the people that I know that dedicate themselves to the arts, their family are like, no, you're gonna starve, you're not gonna be successful, it's gonna be a bad thing. And then there are the rebels like you. I haven't been that kind of rebel. I wish I had the guts to do that. But there's people I know like you, and you succeed at the end. It's like all those fears that are um, imposed on us by our families or the social environment that we live in, sometimes they come unfounded. No, was that your case in a way, like that they were trying so hard but then afterwards they had to bite their tongue and say, oops, we were sorry, we're glad that you are successful?
Well, uh, I ran away from home when I was 17. So I built everything on my own, and I didn't have any contact with my family for many, 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 many years.
Wow.
Because it was a doctor's family. So I had to become, of course, I wanted to, but not in this. I mean, I wanted to have a communication with people.
Mm.
So the approach to healing was already there, but the other thing was that I also knew from a very, very early age that doctors are also human, and they're not gods. They do make mistakes. But this is not, it's a very big secret. A doctor never makes any mistake, of course. So
No,
anyway,
of
there is a
course.
human side to this
Yeah.
thing. But there
Mm.
were other kinds of pressures. It wasn't only about the studies that were going on at this period.
Mm.
So another very important thing with doing your own thing at the right time is that when you're left alone and you're outside, on the street, and you're completely on your own and there's no way back, then you look at yourself and say, okay, what have I got? What am I worth? What is here? You know,
Mhm.
and besides working, because I didn't work until I was 24, so I just stayed over at whatever I could find, and I was working very hard in my art, you know, to get into my school. So I got in first from 2,000 people. So this was a lot of effort. But I want to emphasize nothing to about tooting anyone's trumpet here, but having to emphasize that when you're left under pressure in a situation, then there is a solution to look at what your gold is. So what are you worth? So art and visual arts and studying art and having a life through art is a way to produce something out of nothing. So you have nothing, and
Yeah.
suddenly you create something with your hands, and it's like creating a livelihood with your creativity. So that was a miraculous thing when I discovered it when I was 18, 19, 20, when I had to start.
Mhm.
You know, money was coming in from painting because I was doing, I had my first job when I was 22 for a huge bank institution, and it was in a great congressional hall. And
Okay.
I got paid like heaps of money when I was already 22 because I just
Wow.
and I was participating in a um, um, there was something announced like a competition, and I
Okay.
didn't win the competition. So what did I do? I went straight to the bank. I asked to see the head manager. It was the 90s, there, early 90s, so everything was possible. So I got talking with his secretary, which was a very sympathetic woman. And so I knocked on the door and I arranged a meeting with the manager, the head manager of the bank. And then I had a separate meeting. He grounded, I mean, he was so flabbergasted about the audacity of this young, small person that came
Yeah.
knocking on his door,
Like, who are you? What
that
are you doing here?
he actually gave me the job in spite of I mean, the person who won the competition did win it, but he got his work exhibited in another place, and my work was exhibited in the central hall because, you know, we have to fight for what we want usually, and we have to, against all odds,
Mhm.
first look inside and see, what do I want to do? What am I worth doing? What do I believe in? And then you just go after it. And when you go after it, not, I mean, with an innocence that has to do with the belief in what you're doing, then doors open. I can tell you this does not happen many times in our lives because it requires a tremendous energy and the
Of course.
circumstances to be in the right place.
Mhm.
But there is no age to it. You can do it in your 20s, you can do it in your 60s, you can do it in your 70s. There, I don't think that there is a, because there are many examples of many people who do amazing things all the time, as long as they believe that this is what their burning desire is and what defines them.
I like how you put it, the burning desire, but also the level of commitment that you had for that dream. And I think many of us lack that. You know, I include myself in that group. Like, I kind of have a dream, but then I'm not so sure. But there's people like you who succeed because you are committed to the dream or to your dream. But I also find it very interesting how you were so young. And I mean, you just said something that it never crossed my mind. When you are an artist, it doesn't matter what kind of art you create, you and that is true, you create something out of nothing. So this is very interesting. Like, you never consider that. No, it's like, "Oh, I'm just doing something, and maybe somebody will buy it." But if you change your perspective to, I am creating something out of nothing, and it can be very special, and it can transform somebody's life. Because if we think about visionaries or great artists, Maybe it all begins like an idea. Everything begins as an idea, and then they start executing it. And I think, for example, you already know this. Most people who know me know that I love Star Wars. So imagine this idea that George Lucas had, and then it became this whole universe. And now there's merchandising, and there's many stories coming out of it, and many people involved in. We want to co-create with you through this story that or this idea. No? And at the beginning, nobody believed in him either. And he said, "Well, I don't care. I want to." And he has said it. I'm doing these movies for me. If you don't like it, that's your problem. And I think that tells a difference when an artist, like in your case, what you're sharing with us, you are so sure of what you're doing, of your vision, of what you want to do, then it really doesn't matter who accepts it or not, who likes it or not. It's out there and you're creating. And by consequence, I think that the abundance comes, no?
Um, I would say abundance comes in many ways, but then you have
Exactly.
to define what abundance is.
Yeah.
So abundance comes in many shapes and forms.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Abundance. It's not necessarily money, but you feel fulfilled. You have everything you need to have a good life, no, a good quality of life. You're in peace. So that's why I use that word, not to say money, because, and as you say, no, sometimes artists, maybe you're not the most famous or the one that receives a lot of money, but you can make a good living, a decent living, and you keep on doing what you love. And I think that's the dream, actually, no? Enjoy what you do for a living.
Well, um, yes, this was always a parameter that played a key role in my decisions everywhere. So I had the luxury, actually, because I never had any obligations. I had the luxury to really be involved only in work that was very, very interesting to me, and with people. That was the most important thing, that with people that I admired a lot and were very interested to work with. But this is a luxury that not many people think that they can afford.
Okay.
And especially if you have obligations, the rules of the game change a lot, because
Yeah.
then, of course, the principle is that you have to do exactly the same thing, actually do what makes you happy. But because the signals in our world are very, very mixed, and the expectations and everything that is around us and what we are taught to reproduce as stereotypes usually put us in a situation when we do not think that we have another choice. But I still have to say that it's very important to point out that for somebody who has obligations, it's a different story. And if I didn't have those obligations, then I can just speak theoretically. So I think that the game is going to another tier in relation to finding what you are and what you enjoy most and what your priorities are when you have obligations to fulfill pertaining children and a family and something like that. So
Hmm.
in a way, and abundance for me, if you see, if you, because you said I go for something and I get something and then I'm happy. That's not always the case from what I
Okay.
found out, because at the end, eventually I found out, and maybe I'll find out more as I go,
Mhm.
that the real abundance for me is a question mark. To be able to question, to be, I mean, if I would wish a thing for me always, which I think if I have such a strong wish for it, then it means that I'm already doing it with every fiber of my will. I mean, even sometimes the currents are very opposite to that, is that
Mhm.
to be able to question everything, whatever I go after and I get, then I'm happy if I don't sit on it or say, oh, okay, I got that, and how nice is that. Of course
Mhm.
it is nice to get something that you wanted, but then there is the question about what was it about? How is this being transformed? How is this a different thing than what I thought it was? What is the thing that I'm really seeking after that? And that does not mean being in constant motion of perpetual seeking, but it means in going deeper and deeper every time, posing a question mark and avoiding any crystallization of opinions or beliefs or ideas or stagnation of movement, in order to actually be what develop all the possibilities of one can be, which is a dynamic thing. It's not something that is plan A, plan B, plan C. Dynamic means that it's changing and transforming all the time according to the minuscule changes that are happening here and there on the inside. So, just put a question mark. I think that's the basis when you're talking to people, when you're talking to other people in human relationship, when you're having to do with education, when you're having to do with yourself. It's just to be in the very happy place of being able to question whatever is in front of, not with a belligerent attitude, but really question in peace. As
like what
said.
is this, no? What does it all mean, or how does it impact my life? And I think it's really relevant what you're saying, because many people, at least in my culture, we are taught like you should be afraid of change. No, you should just like play it safe, and just try to make things as we've always been doing it, no? And when you do that thing of putting the question mark, you're allowing yourself to step into the unknown, and that's gonna give you a better way to deal with whatever changes come, because change is the only thing that we have sure in life, no? Change, death, and taxes. So I think that it's very interesting what you're saying about that right now. Now I want to ask you, how did you feel when you were asked to be on board in such a grand event as the Olympic Games? Did that experience transform you, and if so, in what ways?
Uh, well, it wasn't something out of the blue, because I was working with this specific team of this amazing director. He's called Dimitri Papayano, and he's also a choreographer and a dancer, and he has an international career. He's very widely known. We worked together also in Azerbaijan for the Olympics, the opening ceremony, and he's really going around the world doing an amazing career. So also I was working for Lili Pesano, which was a very prominent Greek set designer. Actually, in my opinion, the most prominent that we had at this time. So I was working with them for 5 years already, with various performances and stuff. So it was normal, but it was in a way life-changing, because I mean, working for something as big as that is like going to battle. You don't have that time to think about the consequences of or to think too much about what you're doing. You just have to do it, because the bullets are just flying around, and
You
and
just have to
nothing
react and move.
in showbiz, nothing is smooth.
Yeah,
If you
no,
have any friends that are working in showbiz,
yeah,
nothing. It all appears to run really, really smoothly, but in backstage,
yeah,
nothing runs smoothly. So being inventive and being at the moment and being on the
yeah.
spot and really thinking out of the box is the key word for doing anything that has to do with showbiz in general, whether it's very small or very big. It's the same thing. And there is always the god of showbiz, as we call it, which in a magical way, at the moment of the performance, everything works out. I don't know, it must be some energetic coincidence with serendipity that just glues all together at the right moment, and very, very rarely something goes wrong. But the transformative part came many, many years later, when not many, actually, not too many, I mean, something like 8 years later, when I realized that set design was only a stepping stone, because I was being involved with so many people, and it's a very social occupation, whilst keeping my personal exposure at zero, because I'm a very private person and I never wanted to show my personal self out there. So you acquire skills, except especially if it's such a big organization, and I've been in other events like in China also, and whatever. So you acquire skill of talking a different language, and I don't mean about the languages that I speak in terms of real languages, but the language of talking to the producer and talking to the supplier and talking to whoever. So there has to be a different language of communication. But the transformation came when I realized that I've been so much versed in talking these different languages in order to get what I want. Because usually when we do showbiz, and especially artsy things in showbiz, not very, not a televised morning show, you have to ask from all the suppliers to do something a little different than what they have done before. Like somebody's doing only green cars, so you ask for a red one. And the first thing you hear is, oh, this cannot be done. So you have to be a jack of all trades. Yes, you have to be a jack of all trades, know a little bit about every profession, that you can have a conversation with the person and see really if what is the difficulty, if you can change it, or if you have to persuade the other person that no, you can do it, and just it's not comfortable for you to do it. Just please try to see my point of view. So in this way, you learn to speak many, many, many languages, as I say it, in the various professions and the various persons and personalities. But then I realized that with this, the way that I have been doing it was very technical, was very disassociated from my real self, because I never showed myself. It was just him. So I realized that I really did in this way. I didn't have any relationship with myself, because I've stopped painting, which is a very direct, no no lies and no frills relationship with yourself. You're in the mirror when you're painting, so you cannot lie. But since I was not painting and doing set design, which was a conscious decision, I was getting disassociated from knowing myself deeply, having a relationship with myself, because I didn't have a relationship with the other people, a real relationship. I could just walk the walk and talk the talk, but I didn't feel that I was present in a real human conversation with anybody. So I stopped consciously doing this profession. I withdrew. I had passed, since 2015, I started vigorously. I participated in a meditation group, meditation study group. So I was there for 5.5, almost 6 years. And this needed a lot of time, a lot of dedication, a lot of inner work, which is very, very different. So the person then I had to knock on the door and convince was not the director of a bank anymore, but it was myself. I had to knock on my door to start listening to what is inside and what is important, and how the priorities are shifting towards the inner being. And if I hadn't done all this work with all these huge things, which in my scale, they were huge, many other people might have done 100 times more. If I hadn't been involved in that, there wouldn't be this difference, this polarity of pressure, of disassociation, and this realization of disassociation, in order to see so clearly what the difference is of what is missing there, and probably what was there to be discovered. Because when we realize that something missing, it's not really missing, it's just there waiting to come up, and with a vengeance, let's say, like with a real force to emerge.
Yeah, if you don't pay attention to it, it's gonna come knocking, and like a storm and a hurricane, it's just gonna come out and maybe even destroy whatever you think that you have for sure. No, so that's also very interesting about human processes and how we are forced to by certain situations to come out of our comfort zone and reconnect. No, and so I see your background. It looks very interesting, so I want you to tell us a little bit about it, because you told me that in 1997 you began working with Aura-Soma. So can you explain for us in a few words what exactly is Aura-Soma?
Well, Aura-Soma is what I am now. I'm a practitioner of Aura-Soma. And Aura-Soma is actually, for me, it's a mirror. So as a definition, in a book of someone came out with, I don't remember the name, it came out in the 90s. It said that it's a non-intrusive, self-selective color care system. So this is the definition, not given by Aura-Soma, but somebody who listed alternative therapies in the mid-90s. So anyway, for me, it is a mirroring of the totality of our being. So it begins, a session of Aura-Soma begins with a choosing out of this 122, which I think it's an important number in the Tzolk'in as well. So at the moment it has 132 bottles. There are eventually at the right time others being that emerge, but so somebody is choosing 4 bottles. And this is a complete mirroring of the totality of our being, not only of our wants and desires and our needs and our expectations, but also of our deepest being and our deepest truth through the relation with the vibration of color, which exactly in this way it is being recognized, the self is being recognized through the innocent eyes of a child. Because when you stand in front of that set of the 122 bottles and you choose, and the condition is right that you can choose deeply and not on the surface, everything is correct. Even if you choose on the surface, this is one level of interpretation, but the deeper you go, the more home base it is hitting. It is with the innocence of our the part when we are a child, with the innocent eyes of the child within us, that we choose a simple color combination that resonates with us, because they've got it's a system that is composed of these equilibrium bottles. There are 2 colored bottles, from the one is liquid, the other one is an oil, and they contain many ingredients having to do with herbs and extracts and essential oils, biodynamically produced, and also with minerals and with precious stones that are in an alchemic way incorporated within them. So it is a deep resonance that occurs when you choose, and a mirroring of the totality of our energetic substance.
Wow.
So on the second stage, it progresses by applying the equilibrium bottles on your body at home, of course. And you can take a month or a week or 2 days or several months for each bottle. Your own rhythm is your pace. And this progresses to the integration within our physicality of the transformative process that is taking place exactly within us at this point in time. So something is being transformed, because transformation, as you said, is the only truth. The our form in any way, our emotional form, our etheric or mental form, is being transformed all the time. So this mirroring has to do about the transformation, and by applying the oils on us, because they are this resonant in this alchemic way, they co-resonate with the alchemy that is at all times taking place within our own being through our physicality.
Wow.
And then it concludes, actually, with actually the establishing within our physicality and within our matter of our own elemental composite being, the establishing of this transformation, of the transformation of all our subtle bodies, of our subtle matter. Matter is not only our physical being, but is also, our emotions and our thinking, as far as the subtle fields go. So this transformation is being established in order to realize our potential and be the best that we can be, and to actually realize what we are here to do and how are we about to do it in a very unique and individual way that only we can do. So this is actually also resonating not only on a personal level, but also in a collective and in an ancestral level through our physicality, because it's a physical substance, this oil and this equilibrium bottle, that creates actually by resonance. So it does not do anything on its own. We are the
interacting,
the project that is that is bubbling at the moment and transforming. So this is just resonating with this transformation that is being happening at its own pace, and is amplifying or co-working, cooperating with this transformation. So this equilibrium that we are actually seeking within us in order to release the patterns of abuse, of interrelationship, of correlationship, and trauma, which we persist on perpetuating through our personal, social, or ancestral lineage, is being resolved with this establishment of the transformation. So if we consciously are watching our transformative process, which is what Aura-Soma offers, the conscious observation of the transformative process within us, this is something that resonates not only on our personal transformation, but also in transforming the collective and the ancestral lineages.
Wow.
Throughout time. So time comes also there in the play, having to do with the dimensions of time, with what radial time is and what linear time is and what relative time is. And you know much more about it.
Yeah, well, because I've been working with the galactic Mayan synchronometer for a while, and you're right that we think in a very linear way when reality is radial and multidimensional. And sometimes we forget that this trauma that we're carrying, sometimes we don't even recognize it as trauma. I mean, that's happened to me just very recently. I noticed that because you think like, oh, this is how it is. No, this is normal. And we keep on doing it because that's how it is. No, you have no choice. It is, or you're so asleep, that you don't even think about it. It's just like, oh, this is how it is. And we just go on this program and perpetuate the trauma because you don't know anything better. You don't know anything else. And then when you start waking up because life is pushing you to question, as we were saying a few minutes ago, then you realize, okay, so what if this is not what we think it is, no? And how can I change that? And then you realize, hey, this that I've experienced, it's actually trauma. And when you recognize it as such, and then you decide to heal, then it will have an impact, obviously, not only in your surroundings, in the here and now, but also, as we were talking yesterday, previous to our recording today, it affects not only the future generations, but it's also healing the previous ones. So I think it's very interesting to see that we have all of these tools to work with to bring healing for those of us who are ready to say, you know what, maybe we can do things in a different way. And time is an important part, art is an important part. And there are many other healing techniques or even traditions, no, who are helping us become aware and conscious of uh, what the best model of healing can be for each and every one of us, because we all have different cultural backgrounds, trauma, and histories, and obviously we all need different kinds of things, no? So can you tell us what other schools of thought or traditions you have integrated in your path besides Aura-Soma?
Yes. So when I started reading on my own, I started being very interested in comparative religion. So it means that I was very interested in the history of the Aztecs and the Mayas in comparison with the ancient Egyptians and the Babylonians and the Greeks and the Celts and the Norse people. And I discovered that the same myths and legends are also within. Of course, Eastern tradition was also a very great part, which had more to do with the Tibetan lineage more than anything else. Um, a core, bibliography, let's say, in Aura-Soma, something that is really basic in its structure are the writings of Alice Bailey, which was somebody who had only written 24 books, and then she passed away. She never taught. And that was through channeling with a Tibetan master called Dwal Kul. So in this way, the Tibetan truths are in a way different than let's say, the other parts of Buddhism, which are spanning up to the Eastern Pacific. So I think that also the writings of Rudolf Steiner, which was Swiss and is also a core part of the Aura-Soma Foundation. And then consequentially, things that have to do with anthroposophy, which stems out of Rudolf Steiner, but also theosophy, which is Steiner's work, and the whole lineage of Western esotericism, like Blavatsky and the rest, which we have to take for granted that the basic spinal cord for that was either the Indian, the esotericism that had to do with Indian traditions and culture, Tibetan traditions and culture, and Judaic, which are very important. So the Kabbalah is and the Judaic mysticism is in the core of Western esotericism, in any case, modern at least. But apart from that, I was very interested as well in the early stages in the Mesoamerican cultures, and also in the North American native cultures. And recently, when I discovered the law of time, I was really, really excited, because the things that I'm learning within the law of time resonate a lot with what I saw in meditations for many years, and how I perceive time and space. So I think that all this leads to a shift of consciousness having to do with our elemental nature, having to do with our physicality, because we tend to regard civilizations, and this is because I was talking about all these writings and all these civilizations that their history is about 5 or 10,000 years old, which is another issue, because what I was most amazed at is that, you know, the stonework underneath the Sphinx, there is a temple underneath the Sphinx, and it's got a particular stonework, which is completely different than anything else you see in Egypt, in ancient Egyptian structures. And then you go to ancient Greece and you see the Mycenaean walls and other parts up in the mountains that have got colossal walls, and they're built in exactly the same way. And then you go to some other northern, but they're just bits and pieces, cyclopean walls, let's say, big stone walls, and you see the same structure. And then you go to the Mesoamericas and you see this exact structure there, and everything like that is actually, or in Malta as well, is actually dated 10,000 years ago. And 10,000 years ago, we weren't supposed to have any civilization. And with Göbekli Tepe being being discovered recently, this is also megalithic structure. So I'm not going into any theories, because I don't really care to say, oh my God, you know, do some theories that are out there or participate in them. I just was wondering that probably there was a history in civilization that had to do with some connection, whether it was physical or just, you know, telepathic. I don't care too much, but my interest was that we are so interested in stone. So why is that? Why do we consider civilization to be anything that was built in stone, or in another way, in the volume of commerce and the exchange of wealth and the gold? So if you ask archaeologists, and if you watch any archaeological research, the main point of civilization is if they had gold ornaments. So this is okay, gold ornament civilizations. And if they also, of course, then very secondarily or tertiarily, if they had language and written language and mathematics and philosophy. But you know, that's, you know, like you get a plate of steak and potatoes, and there's just a little bit of salad on the side. So the philosophy is just the salad. And they also, because they had commerce and money, they also had some philosophy with it. Okay, so this tension of ours to view the perspective of what is civilized in terms of mineral material goods has to do with our evolution, according to Steiner, of our mineral nature. So we're evolving within the kingdoms, our fiery part, our air part, our watery part, and our mineral part. So Earth is, according to Steiner, the point of evolution of the mineral part within us, and the integration of the other three. But this is only a very early stage. So we see everything from out of the perspective of understanding the minerals. So this is what is transforming right now, because this goes in stages. There are 7 stages times 7 morphic developments, so 49 stages of evolution in its stage planetary evolution plateau, let's say. So we are now at the stage of the stage of understanding and evolving our mineral perspective. So this mineral perspective, because at this moment everything is so much narrated through the perspective of mineral form, because everything we see and we can touch is real and is successful and is cultural and it's
It feels
influential and
very
whatever.
definitive, no? When you, if you think about stones or minerals, it's like it's there, it doesn't move, it lasts for so much longer than like a plant can die, an animal can die, water may come and go, but the stones remain.
Yeah, but that's exactly how a mineral elemental would see it. It would
Yeah,
see it because they're very intelligent, and we are composed of it. In a part of us
of
is within
course.
us.
Hmm.
So this is exactly the perspective of intelligence that a mineral elemental would see the things. But the point is that we are not only one of our components. We are actually the unifier and the one who has to bring equilibrium in all of our components.
Hmm.
And our shift of perspective is within the heart, within the consciousness of love and cooperation, which comes from uh, the feeling part of the being. And I'm not meaning the emotional, but the starting to discern about the qualities of what we can see beyond form is
Mm.
what our real ability of consciousness is, to be able to integrate and bring into equilibrium the several elemental parts that are within us, which at the same time
Mm.
are having an influence into the elemental nature of the same of the building blocks themselves.
Mm.
So we are in a way evolving through this mediumship of us being able to bring everything in an equilibrium in our heart, in our middle, and thus in this way are being a mediator for the progression of the stages of the mineral world themselves. Um, so this is a very interesting point of view, because this
Yes.
disassociates us from the identification with the form, with the trauma, which we persist in
Mm.
perpetuating all the time and identifying with it. So when we see that this is just a part of us that is having this perspective of absoluteness in form and the stability, the mineral stability of materiality, and we see that beyond that there's another thing that has to do with a quality
Mhm.
beyond the form. This shift of evolution, I think, is starting to happen now, because the trauma is being resurfaced a lot within humanity, and
Yes.
also the confusion about what is right, because two things may seem completely alike, but we are confused now of what to
Mm.
believe, because you can
Yeah.
argue either way and have strong arguments, and everything can be justified at this day and age.
Yeah.
So if everything can be justified, what is the truth? How do we seek the truth? So there
Exactly.
is a great shift that is happening within humanity
Definitely.
towards the disassociation from trauma and disassociation from the purely elemental mineralistic view of the absolute form of materiality into what is behind it. When we see civilizations that didn't have stone or didn't have writing or didn't have counting, like the Aborigines
Mm.
of Australia or the Native American Indians of the North, or other civilizations that have been in the up north or in other parts of the world, then we regard them as less, but we have never, when we actually go there and we feel the connection of the people towards their inner being and the being of nature, the being of the plants,
Mhm.
we can start concluding that there is a lot that is civilization that we just don't consider it as
Yeah,
civilization. So there is a
definitely.
big shift And also the plant and mineral kingdom and the animal kingdom, like the whales, which can communicate, they can do amazing things.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we just see it as a curiosity and as entertainment. We do
Yeah.
not have any reverence yet for the animals, which is going to come to a much later state in human evolution, according to Steiner, after we perceive what a plant is. So we have to contain in ourselves and assimilate mineral consciousness for the time being, and then there is plant consciousness to understand how a plant feels, and then to
Yeah.
understand how animals feel in a later stage of it, and at the end how another human feels. So we will conclude our journey within the earth when we can really feel in our totality the totality of another living human person. And
Mm.
this is far, far away from our perception from now. But it all starts from this physicality, because physicality
Of
is
course.
what we are dealing with at the moment.
Yeah, that's what we were also saying yesterday. No, we're not human beings having a spiritual experience. It's rather we are spiritual beings having a human experience. So it's very important to bring into this unification our bodies, because many traditions, spiritual traditions, they say no, forget about the body. The body is bad. It's gonna make you sin. You're gonna go to hell, and then you're like, no, I don't need to feel my body. I don't need to feel pleasure or pain or whatever. And it's quite the opposite, and that's something that I love about Kabbalah, because Kabbalah is bringing people, or at least in my studies, being brought back to the body and saying, you know what, this is part of your experience. You have to feel it and vibe it and connect with it, connect with the most basic part of your being. And many people are missing that out. But I think that, as you say, all the trauma, like I know a lot of people that are doing this work with their family trees and their ancestral histories to bring some healing. And I think that what you're saying makes a lot of sense. This is the time to do that, and many people we are seeking that because there is a need to move on to another level. So what you're saying makes a lot of sense, definitely. And also from what you were telling me yesterday, you are creating two different projects. So I don't know if you can tell us about it. One, you're going to be coordinating that for Michael Mass, and the other one is going to come a little bit later, and it's related to Kabbalah. So can you tell us about it and how people can join these teachings that you're going to offer?
Yes, it's actually one project. It's just gonna start with Michael on Michael Mass, because as I was tuning in, of course, according to theosophy and to anthroposophy, Archangel Michael as an archetype. We're not sticking now to religion,
Yeah.
but we're following the archetypal vibrations which are out there. So we call it now Archangel Michael because this is the day and time. Maybe in
Hmm.
10,000 years it's going to be called something else, and maybe 10,000 years before it was called something else, but it's an archetypal vibration.
Yeah.
Which in Aura-Soma also has a very specific bottle. So let me show you just for a moment.
Excellent.
Just to bring in the vibration and nothing
Awesome.
more. I'm not gonna explain anything more. So it's light yellow underneath and light blue on top. And let's keep it in order to move with the vibration of Archangel Michael. So
Okay.
Archangel Michael is at the center of our heart, is the guardian actually of our heart. So he's the guardian of the process of transformation, of unification, of finding the equilibrium within our elemental and our spiritual composites, which are forces that are pulling us apart. You know, our spiritual side is having great trouble with assimilating the fact that they're here in this physical body, because we are a spiritual being that came into the solar system, and we were not used to being restricted in this way. But this is a very important system, because what is being done here is
Hmm.
the integration of knowledge through the experience of love. So this means vulnerability is a great part of the game. So
Okay.
Archangel Michael is there to really be there in our heart, to help us and give us the environment wherever we feel inclined to approach this place, the environment of security that, yes, we are here to do this work, to be the mediumship, to be the equilibrium ourselves, to be the center of all these polarities and all these forces within our building blocks, which is our spirituality, which doesn't want us to be incarnated, and our physicality, which wants to keep us in the perpetuating patterns of trauma and of physicality. To bring these polarities together in an equilibrium inside of the space of our heart through love. But then we have to accept our vulnerability. We have to accept our spirituality. So we have to remember who we are, where we come from, why we are here for. We've forgotten that. So Archangel Michael is there at the center of our heart when all this is taking place, because this is the beauty in the tree of Kabbalah. And that is what beauty means. Beauty means the golden equilibrium in the middle, and not the physical harmony of form. The physical harmony of form, which has to do with mathematics, with arithmology, which is a huge part. Gematria is a huge part of Kabbalah, has to do also with beauty, but from the side of power. So the beauty from the side of love is a much not different, but it's like yin and yang. It's like one with the other together. We cannot have mathematics without love. Exactly. We cannot have structure without love. So without compassion, let's say. So structure and compassion has to do with acceptance and compassion, and has to do with the balance between them, which happens in the heart. So Michaelmas is a date that we have forgotten, and I've recently known about it. So I didn't know of it before, that it was a medieval celebration of great, how do you say, boom, exactly like Christmas. That's why it was called Michaelmas. Of course, it had to do with the seasons and with the end of summer and with the end of the laborious crops, and you know, all the harvest was done, and the trees and whatever had to be harvested was done by the 29th of September. But at the same time, it was the day of Archangel Michael. So I want to start this seminar I want to do, which has to do with the Kabbalah, on Michaelmas, whether it's only just a celebration, which is going to be reoccurring every year, as far as I'm concerned, in my activity. And let's revive Michaelmas together. Let's remember how Archangel Michael, or whatever he stands for, you don't have to name him like that, but it would be good because it's resonating at the moment with his name, what he stands for, and how our heart is really where we live, where we stay. Our home is in our heart, and the cooperation within our parts is the most important thing. So the seminar I want to do is to be called, is like weekly, on a weekly basis, and is to be called the 96 Paths of Kabbalah plus 32, the 96 plus 32 paths of the Tree of Life. So this means that what I want to do is exactly what I was talking about, the integration within us through the process of exploration within us of our fourfold elemental nature. So there is the threefold elemental nature, which is our body, our etheric, our emotion has to do with the water. So the body has to do with the minerals, the emotions have to do with the waters, and the mind has to do with the air. So our feeling, our thinking, and our physical instinctual nature and the exploration in the tree of life on what these qualities, because the spheres are qualities and the paths are the connection of these qualities. So what this quality feels like in the air world, what it feels for our mind, what it feels for an emotion, and how it feels for our instinct and our instinctual being, it might be very, very different. And in this way, we start differentiating and seeing how these parts of us, our elemental nature, which composes us, is actually the one that has got the magnetic force of one of our actions or of our thinking or of our feelings. So we start disassociating and identifying with these through this observation from things that we thought that they are our own thoughts. So yes, of course, they're our own thoughts, but it gets influenced by a material that composes us, and we don't have to suppress this material. We don't have to
ignore it or push it
powerfully
aside, no?
rule over the material. We have to cooperate with the things that combine us. And in the same way, that's why it's plus 32, which is our spiritual self, which is the world of fire, which has to do with a completely different kind of pull. It's pulling us outside of the physicality, outside of the incarnation. But everything outside of incarnation is completely inconsequential and irrelevant, because the music we have to play in this concert of the universe can only be played in the Carnegie Hall that we are being invited to play it, which is our life at the moment where we are at the here and now. So, excuse me, there is no other chance that we can play. If you played in the elevator on the way, it's inconsequential. So we are only in this time and place we can actually be the best that we can be and fulfill our potentiality, not through our preconcepts and our stereotypes and our desires, like, I would like to be tall and beautiful and rich. Okay, that's another thing. That's not the best that we can be exactly. Maybe it goes through that, but if you identify with form, it's definitely not exactly that, because form is subject to constant transformation. So our great trauma and pain is like for the preservation of form in a perpetual way. So this is completely contradictory to the nature of form, which is transforming all the time and has these cycles. So that's why we adore civilizations with stone, because the stone remained there for thousands of years. So I would like to remain like that. But it's not exactly like that. This is the shift of consciousness. And through the exploration of our elemental nature and the observation, I would think so. And I'm going to be part of this. I'm going to be an explorer as well, together with whoever participates. My deepest aspiration is to actually slowly come in a natural way in touch with our different elemental parts and the polarities and the magnetic forces that are working within us, so that we can understand how through our consciousness and through remembering who we really are and what we bring into this world, which is our knowledge, but our knowledge has to become wisdom. And it becomes wisdom through the integration in the middle of our heart of all our parts and the cooperation. And then we start cooperating with other people, because this is what we are here to do. We have from completely different parts of the universe. We came all here to cooperate with each other and within our parts and with the other beings. So cooperation gives a different quality to the concepts of interrelation and correlation, interdependence and codependence, because that can be very abusive and that can lead to trauma if treated only as a formative philosophical thinking.
Yeah, definitely. Wow, it sounds super, super interesting, and we already talked about it. I want to participate definitely. So, can you please tell us how people can reach you to find out more about you and sign up for this course that you're
Well,
developing?
yes, one course that I'm gonna do is gonna be live here in my space, and another course is will be hopefully with our cooperation through a learning platform that has to do with in a weekly basis a recorded session and once a month a live session.
Mhm.
And somebody can reach me through my email, which I'll be giving to you. You can post it. And for the moment, because I'm opening up a web page, but I want to do it in the precise way that it has to be done. And it is nearly time, but I cannot give it out yet.
Okay.
So there is
So,
more
but
to.
people can contact you on the email address that we are posting here on the video and in the comments. Uh-huh. The
Yes.
description of the video. Very good. Uh-huh. Excellent. And
Yeah. And on my
I
telephone
interrupted
number.
you. I'm so sorry.
No, 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 it's nothing. Yeah, of course. And on my telephone number, which I'm on WhatsApp, so if somebody can reach me through that, if they
Okay.
prefer to. But so for the moment, it's that. I'm very soon, like in the next 2 months, gonna have also a website, so it's gonna be much easier to learn all the information through my website.
Yeah, how to reach you. Perfect. So this sounds very, very interesting, and I'm sure that a lot of people will be joining this first course that you're offering, and it's very interesting how you are integrating so many things that you've been working with for many, many years in a different way. So that's really good. And so I want to thank you, Mahamara, so much for sharing with us all of this amazing information. And I definitely want to be present for the online activities. And we know that there is so much more we can talk about, especially since we both follow the 13 moon synchronometer. I'm really looking forward to having you back here in our podcast, in the Zuvuya Sessions podcast, with more news on what you're doing. I don't know if there's something else you want to add just to close this conversation.
Yeah, that we're all connected telepathically already, which is something that is a core concept of the law of time. Because before you started talking about the trauma and the identification with trauma, I felt the need to wear this, which is the bottle of shock and trauma in Aura-Soma, which I'm wearing for the last 6 years. But it's also about the completion and the reassembling, right? The remembering, to remember. It's also to remember, but it's also to reattach your members together, so
Ah,
to
good
speak.
point.
So
Yeah.
vibrationally, we're all connected in a way in what we speak. So I was starting to wear it because I had it on my lap. And at the same time, you started to speak about the trauma and the shock and the identification. So I find that this is a very good visual example because it was not rehearsed or I didn't know anything about how the conversation would be going there.
We had no
Uh,
idea. Like, it could go
so
anywhere.
serendipity and communication is
Yeah.
everything we have, and Kabbalah is all about communication and
Yeah.
real life communication, and
Mhm.
that's why it has to do with an oral tradition. And in our communication, because this is the new era of communication, this is the new millennium, let's say, and the next at least 2,500 years have to do with this era of communication. And Aquarius, of course, which already has started, so we're full in it at the moment. But
Mhm.
at the entrance, just right into our foot on the door. um, so it has to do communication. For me, is actually formless because it cannot happen if you have conceptual ideas in your head. If you have
Mm.
something that is ready, like a placard behind your head, then you're not communicating. You're just talking to the mirror, or to a recording box. communication is a live thing, and this is what I wanted to say with the serendipitous interaction between us at this point, because it is forming, and this is the concept for me of Kabbalah, that it is actually stabilizing and establishing through our communication. We're building the light, we're building a grain of sand in the paths that unite the spheres, the qualities of the spheres. So in this way, through our communication, this is a live thing and a formless thing, which is a formless because it continuously shifts its appearance. We are constantly connecting in a different way, in our own individual and unique way when we are communicating, and we're building together a grain of sand that is staying there perpetually for all time as light being built in the progression of the universe. Wow. So it is very exciting how the Kabbalah is alive, and how our communication is so important, because it does not have to do only with the exchange of ideas. It also changes and transforms our bodies and our emotions and our physicality. Definitely. And the universe in consequence, just a little bit, but even a grain of sand, if you think of it in a road, it's still a grain of sand. It's
well,
there.
it can be like this effect with a the snowball effect. No, you begin with something big and it can get bigger. Like, you never know. Definitely. And I would change the word serendipity for synchronicity.
Of course, this is a very correct observation.
Yeah,
Thank you
so in
very
my
much.
case, because I'm working with the law of time, and also I think and it's very interesting because I find that the tree of life talks to you about space, and the law of time tells you about the time. So they come together in a beautiful way, and I think that we will be soon developing information related to this, because we're both studying the same traditions, and I'm sure that there's so much more to come, both from your side as well as from Mexicamelot side. So thank you so much, Mahaamara, for being here with us and sharing your
Thank you
knowledge.
very much. Thank you very much. Thank you for all your effort and your teachings, and our interaction and our communication. I'm very happy about it.
Thank you. Well, there you have it, Syncronauts. You can see on the video the email address to contact Mahaamara and to participate in the courses that he's creating. And if you have any other questions or whatever, you can also put them here in the comments. So thank you so much, Syncronauts. Thank you, Mahaamara. And so we'll see each other very soon. Until next time, take care. Bye.